Blog number 63. This or that. Either way, I benefit. Before this blog begins, I would like to point out that I have added a new feature to my blog page. On the right-hand side at the top is a link to translate my writing into another language. I don't know how necessary this is, but I thought it was a really nice feature to offer to you, my readers. Sorry, but it will not improve my writing or make this blog any funnier. And now, when our kids were little, Melissa and I lived on an 80-acre Christmas tree farm that is located about 15 miles from where I currently am living. At this residence, we had 3 or 4 rose bushes planted in our front yard right in front of our deck. Interspersed throughout these were miniature wild roses that I discovered growing in the field beside our home. I dug up some shoots off the main root system, leaving this main plant intact, and transplanted these offshoots to my yard where they did very well. They bloomed with a very pretty nickel-sized red flower. The native rose bushes were the common variety, and they put out baseball-sized yellow and red blooms. All this beautiful growth was separate from and in spite of any effort on my part. Why do I mention this? How has this blog now become writing about gardening? Believe me, you don't want to take any advice about gardening from me. I can't even get moss to grow successfully. Now at this point, you might be tempted to say something like, Jason, you must be exaggerating. I mean, how hard could it be to grow moss? Hey, I wish I were only making this up, but no, I'm not. And sadly, it's a true story. A very true, very sad story. Melissa and I thought that it would be a nice alternative to grass in our backyard. And some decorative moss might be a nice alternative. So we proceeded to go to a highly respected garden store and we purchased 3 healthy moss plants. We brought them home, we planted them, and we gave them plenty of water. And then, yep, they all died. All 3 of them. They didn't even appear to have put any effort into living. I mean, if they just would have given us something, new shoots, they would have stayed at least half green, something. No, they just unceremoniously died. Pretty sad when you can't even grow moss on purpose, especially when you turn around and see that there's robust and thriving farms of it growing elsewhere in the yard, all of which are native. I guess in my case, the moss didn't want to be enslaved by civilization, but instead it wanted to retain its wild and carefree lifestyle. Anyway, I got off the subject. I said all that so I can tell you the next part of the whole rose story, because that was the part that I really wanted to tell you about. So anyway, what happened next was that the wild rose and the domesticated rose commingled and made a hybrid rose like I had never seen before, or that I have not ever seen since. I'm almost positive that the introduction of the new species of rose that I had inadvertently grown would make a rather large splash in the world of botany. If only I would have taken the time, but I didn't, and those roses are gone now. To this day, I think of that hybrid rose from years ago and wish I wouldn't have let that opportunity slip by me so easily. And that is exactly why I'm not going to let the next situation slip by me without mentioning it. Because before my very eyes, there is an outside form of ataxia that is commingling with my current spinocerebellar ataxia, and it is forming a very unique variety. The only problem that I am facing right now is that I have 2 different names for this current phenomenon, and a vastly different definition to go along with each name. I will, however, proceed to spell each one of these out for you and let you be the ones to decide. The first new breed of ataxia is what I refer to as sympathy ataxia. This form of ataxia is much the same as the sympathy pains that I had for my wife each time that she was pregnant with our 3 children. I distinctly remember that our first child, I was working at a retirement center as the lead cook assistant manager. Melissa was about 8.5 months pregnant, and I was on one of my breaks at work. I accidentally spilled my cup of coffee, to which I immediately, shouted, "Hey, my water just broke." I then began to experience some stomach cramps. I also remember having weird cravings for obscure food combinations, although that couldn't technically be described as sympathy pains, as Melissa never really had any off-the-wall food cravings. Well, that and because our youngest child is 18 now, about to enter college, and my weird food cravings are still with me. I don't know whether it was sympathy towards my ataxia or not, but I began to take notice of the fact that my wife and daughters are beginning to exhibit signs of having trouble. They've started to drop things, spill food and drink on themselves while eating. At first I was tempted to think that they were doing this as a way of showing me what I looked like when I eat. This was funny to me, and I was going to reply that although I appreciated the humor, I was aware of what I looked like. Then, as the frequency of these things kept happening, I realized that they were not just conning around, but all the fumblage, the droppage, the spillage were real, and this could be only chalked up to sympathy. Or it could be explained by the second name, a condition that I have come to refer to as osmosis ataxia. Through the years that Melissa and I have been married, we have absorbed some of each other's traits, habits, and sense of humor. Humor that is defined as having trace amounts of observation, irony, and a sense of the physical pratfall, are added to a very large amount of quick-witted sarcasm. We also quite often know what the other is thinking, or what the other will say in a wide range of situations, although Melissa has got me pegged a little better in this department. I have to say that I have made it easier for her by repeating the same stupid quips, jokes, and comments over the years. Repeating myself is more likely a product of the faulty short-term memory, but I can't recall. But I think I may have recently written a blog about that. You should definitely feel free to go back and reread the blog to check and see if I am remembering correctly. So back to osmosis. Is this what is really happening? Does my SCA have an element of life by example? Does ataxia have an effect like secondhand cigarette smoke? Traits that can be absorbed by others? I still am not sure which definition is the correct one, sympathy or osmosis. Which one do you think is more likely? Well, regardless of which one it is, though, there is a large benefit that has come to my life because of my current neurological situation. Hand-holding. Lots of hand-holding and other physical contact. This realization came to me the other day when my youngest daughter, my wife, and myself took a trip to the beach for the day. All day long, Melissa was there to hold my hand and to safely guide me. And whenever she wasn't, my daughter was, who did not hesitate to hold my hand and help me down a small staircase or step off a curb without doing a faceplant finishing move. There were a few times when we were on a narrow path and we had to proceed in single file. Melissa would be in front of me, reaching back and taking my hand, and Jessica would be behind me, reaching forward to steady me. I was very thankful, and it reminded me again that I cannot possibly do this alone. So I urge you to reach out, to let someone take your hand and guide you. Let someone show you the way to safety. Then They can be assimilated through osmosis or sympathy.